Digital Summit with the theme of supercharging startups. This event is organized by Internet and Mobile Association of India, and the summit is supported by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, and Niti Aayog. I'm your host Devendra Nagli from IMAI, and we have a wonderful conversation fireside chat here on the topic of content creators and commerce, the DTC playbook. Before we start, we would like to thank our digital financial management partner, EaseBuzz, conversational messaging partner, GupShup, session partner, GoQuick, gold partners, Panorama Online, Blink Digital, and Yellow.ai, and silver partner, ShareChat. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Nikhil Vora, founder and CEO, Six Sense Ventures, who will moderate today's session with our wonderful speaker, Ms. Priyanka Gill, co-founder of the Good Glamm Group. I would request all the delegates and attendees to put your questions in the chat box, and we'll try to cover those towards the end of the session or during the session. Over to you, Mr. Nikhil.
Thanks so much for this, Devin. It's a pleasure to be here. And more importantly, it's my real pleasure to be speaking with you, Priyanka. Before I start, I need to admit something. I need to admit that I met Priyanka a few years back. And at Six Sense, we had passed this investment of investing in her business, which was PopXO at that point in time. And as I reflect back today, Priyanka, it now stands as Six Sense biggest antithesis portfolio in some form. So just for layman, anti-portfolio is pretty much the deals or transactions that we possibly pursued but did not consume and did not invest in. So, and that's worked very well. So very happy for that. That Priyanka, it's worked well for you. And personally, I'm really looking forward to see very happy to see where you are, Priyanka, today, and look forward to understanding more of your journey and the path that you've created to build a fabulous content plus commerce platform, behemoth in India today. So would love to know more of your journey, what's gone into it, and where we are from here on. So to put this in context, Priyanka, your journey has been fascinating, specifically from a pure content platform, which I'm sure as investors or as people who've looked at businesses, we always struggle to see how do you monetize a pure content platform, which was what PopXO was, to now being co-founder of the Good Glamm Group, which is over $1 billion entity as we speak right now. So if you have to just reflect back, obviously this was never the plan for you, but what are the major moments that shaped this journey of yours from PopXO to Good Glamm, or maybe even before PopXO?
Thanks, Nikhil. And also it's very, very kind of you to kind of give that very kind introduction. It was kind of, it's quite special actually, even to see an investor of your stature calling you an anti-portfolio. It's quite a special thing actually. So thank you for that. No, you're right. When you as investors would look at PopXO and look at it as a digital media company and ask the question, how are you going to make money? I, as the entrepreneur, would say, I'm going to make a lot of money, right? And as entrepreneurs by DNA, we are supposed to be bullish and we are supposed to say that. But now looking back at the journey, investors are probably right not to look at us as a very promising investment, because it is hard to make money as a content business. As a digital content business, it's very hard to make money. And that's a fact. And that's something that we publicly admit, and it is a real fact. It's very easy for a good digital content business to get a lot of sticky users, right? And that's what at PopXO we did very right. We managed to get female digital users and get them really sticky to our platform and really attract them day on day, hour on hour, month on month, year on year through content, and without any paid marketing costs attached to that user acquisition. And really engage with them. They love the brand PopXO, so that there's a very good relationship that we had with the user. Then the thought, that was kind of, I think, the first thing that we realized, and how you really grow at scale with users. Second thing we realized was that alongside users, influencers and creators are going to be a big thing, right? So we launched Plixo, which is an influencer marketing platform, which again will tie very nicely back into kind of the Good Glamm story as we come to that. So that's probably I can mark as a second pivot. The third key pivot that I'd probably, if I had to kind of look back at the journey, was the investment that we did get. Right. So in early 2020, the round that we were kind of talking to you about, we actually managed to close that round, and we had our Series C lined up. And in early 2020, I get a message saying that the investor is passing. He's no longer investing. Lawyers had come in, the PwC had done the due diligence, we had paid all the fees to everyone, and the documents were drawn. Only signatures had to happen. And that's kind of a very late stage for something like this to happen to a company. And you, of course, invest enough. So you know what happens to the founder when you get that message saying that I'm not investing in you anymore. At that point, my existing kind of investor stepped in, and we kind of managed to kind of get some extra cash in just so we could kind of keep the lights open. And then pandemic happened. Right, so what little money was flowing through the company through the brand revenues that we had, that completely stopped because brands stopped paying us. So that became a real crisis point for the company. And we really had to go out creatively and look at the market as a whole, understand the assets we had. At that point, we had 60 million users who were female. We had 60,000 influencers that were onboarded onto our creator platform. And there's a very valuable kind of user group and influencer group to have. We started talking to all kind of brands and platforms across in India. A lot of them were friends. So I kind of made a lot of calls saying, guys, let's do something together. And in the middle of all of that, one of my investors suggested I talk to Darpan Sangvi. And Darpan was then the founder of Glamm, which was a makeup brand. And as kind of long story short, and as things happen, it was a 2-hour call. And I took the call, frankly, as a courtesy because my investor had asked me to. And I was talking to really big platforms at the time, right, in terms of who will acquire PopXo and Flixo. But in 2 hours' time, I think Darpan and I really realized we had a meeting of minds where I was coming at content to commerce from a content perspective. I was a digital media entrepreneur. I wanted to kind of build into the commerce space to monetize my audience. He was coming to content to commerce from a commerce perspective. He had a very, very good e-commerce engine kind of built out, a great product line built out. His biggest challenge was marketing costs. And he really felt strongly, and he put his money behind it, that content is where my marketing costs will get completely reduced. So it was a 2-hour call. At the end of those 2 hours, I was convinced. And then he's like, I would like you to be my co-founder. Again, huge honor. And in 1 week, we had the term sheet. In 1 week, he convinced all my investors to drop all the other term sheets that we had on the table. Some of them were quite attractive. And it was amazing to see kind of such salesmanship at this level happen. And the rest became history. So in August 2020, we announced that Glamm, PopXo, and Flixo were coming together. And in 1 month, we actually saw the magic happen. Content and influencers were able to dramatically reduce the marketing costs of a direct-to-consumer brand. And that's when, again, investors kind of came back into the fold, and there was a huge excitement around this very unique model that we had kind of played out at scale. We became Amazon's first DTC investment in India. Again, big honor for us as a group. With that money, we began to acquire other brands to put into kind of our flywheel to see what happens when other brands get exposed to kind of this content creator commerce flywheel. And the Good Glamm Group was announced, and we suddenly became India's first digital beauty and personal care conglomerate that was powered by content and creators. And so if I had to kind of mark the pivots of my professional life, they would probably be it. Lots of turns, as you rightly said. I never imagined in the beginning of my journey that this is where we'd end up. But I think that is the kind of the pleasure of being an entrepreneur. If you keep your options open and you're flexible, a lot of great things can happen. So extremely excited to be here. Thank you so much to IMAI for kind of hosting us, and really looking forward to this conversation.
And I can bet on it, Priyanka. Great things are just starting to happen with you. It's still the start of that journey. So, Priyanka, the other part is that if I look at PopXo and look at Glamm, they pretty much cater to different positions in the consumer purchase lifecycle. So what are the learnings? So specifically because it's content marrying commerce in some form. So what are the learnings that, frankly, you thought you were bringing into Good Glamm Group at that point in time? Because it wasn't something which was a natural match in some form. And you guys obviously experimented and really did very well on that. So firstly, what were the learnings? What were the biggest surprises that you had during that same period of time? And challenges, or maybe just the positive impact of what you saw of that acquisition or merger as you would look at it?
Sure. So, I've been, look, again, I'll say it again because it needs to be said. It's very hard to make money as a digital media entrepreneur. As a digital media company, it's very hard to make money, especially in India, because, the math is simple, right? GDP is low. So your income per person is low. If people don't have enough income, then brands are not going to pay you enough money to advertise to them. It's a simple math, right? So India is a tenth of what Indian media companies get paid, a tenth online for the same audience that a US media company would have. So it's not possible actually to make a lot of money as a digital media company in India. But what again, the way to monetize the audience is to sell products to them, right? So as PopExo and on my personally, we had already begun this content to commerce experiment very early on, right? So in 2018, we had launched a skincare collection. We launched T-shirts. Our best-selling products were surprisingly doormats and wall clocks, all with the PopExo branding. And the idea then was that we really know what our users are reading, watching, liking, commenting, sharing. We'll use those themes and create merchandise around it, and we'll sell it back to our user using the PopExo, the PopExo kind of the platform that we have. And early, it was actually really working out. One of our first wins was we created the PopExo beauty box, in which actually Glamm had put in some free product in there. And now that I think about it, and we sold, I think it was 5,000 boxes in, I think, 4 days. And they were priced pretty heftily. If I remember, I think they're around 1,500 rupees a box. Oh my God, we sold like 5,000 in 4 days. That's really, we can do commerce right now. So that actually became kind of our belief as a company. And then we kind of started. Investors, of course, didn't believe it because they really thought, and in my hindsight, rightly, that look, you are a digital media entrepreneur. You don't know how to do commerce. You really have to do a lot of learning to do commerce right. So they didn't believe it. But anyway, I really thought content to commerce was going to be a thing. And it took commerce DNA from that point to actually make it happen. So my big learning is that as brands, and all of us who are here kind of in the audience as well, all of us are running brands right now in different ways. We're running consumer-facing brands in many ways. And content is really the best way to have conversations with your user. And as a brand, our job is to have a conversation with the user. At some point, we sell them something, at some point, we don't, but the idea is to keep the conversation going. And if you're effectively able to do that, that is when you will have a relationship with the user that goes beyond the transaction, right? And then you're able to undercut your competition that's basically selling to the user through discount. Right now, we are kind of e-commerce in many ways, or it was in the past, recent past, at least giving money to users to buy the product. The discounts are so deep. Indian consumers have had a fantastic time. Every single thing that they've been bought has been subsidized by VC money, pretty much, right? Because everyone's wanting to gain market share. Content actually undercuts this whole kind of cycle that we're in. So if you're able to create sticky content, users will like you for who you are. They understand who you are. They will converse with you. And then you can at some point sell them something. And then you're not paying money to acquire the user. You brought them in through content. So that is something that really works. We've seen it play out at scale. And one of the good surprises was it actually plays out at scale, right? PopExo today, we have 88 million users. The Good Glamm group as a whole, with Scoop Up in the mix, we have 150 million users. And we are acquiring 300,000 users every month, right? Which, as you would know, Nikhil, is a pretty decent number. And we can put it in context by kind of probably one of the largest customer acquisitions that any brand or platform is seeing today in the country is us, right? And that is the power of content. And that's the power of doing content well. The other part of this equation is influencers. So I mean, the history of influencer marketing is interesting. Starts with Bollywood celebrities and cricketers. Shah Rukh Khan, Ruba ki Banyan Fentata nahi Fentata is a big question, but he'd sell it, right? And as audiences, we bought into that because we like Shah Rukh Khan. But at some point, we became disenchanted with that because we knew he doesn't wear it, right? We couldn't believe credibly that he actually wears it or not. And that's actually when you can see with the rise of social media platforms, influencer marketing come into play. It was someone like you, someone like me, a girl next door, a boy next door who can really believe uses the products. And that has really kind of played out well. And today, a lot of users get buy products because influencers tell them to, and brands are willing to recognize that, right? So as a Good Glamm group, we really believe in content. We really believe in creators who are influencers, and we believe that that's the best top of the funnel to drive audiences to buy the fantastic products that we have. In a long kind of pointed way, I hope I've answered your question.
No, that's super. I think completely agree with that. Which also brings me to this issue of the customer engagement that one gets and the customer experience that we get. The context being that there are new brands which are being launched almost every day, and everyone's vying for that customer attention. So is there any specific way to address, which maybe your group is doing today, Good Glamm group is doing, to leverage this integrated structure? One is obviously you talked about marrying content with commerce, but what about the post-purchase consumer experience? Is that being differentiated, or is that being taken? Right now, it is almost similar to any other platform purchase that one would do, but is there a way to differentiate that? Because the stickiness possibly will evolve from there, while the start or the experience will start from the content and then the commerce, but stickiness will evolve here.
So yeah, that's a great question, Nikhil. And when in the beginning, when I was first talking to Darpan, three things really excited me about. Actually, maybe four things really excited me about kind of why should we kind of go and kind of partner up with MyGlamm and with Darpan. One was, of course, him, the entrepreneur. I mean, again, extremely bullish. You know him, so you know exactly kind of the energy that he brings into a conversation. And there's a trust factor that kind of also was almost instantly there. Second was MyGlamm, the brand, knew how to make products. You know, they made makeup products, and my belief is if they know how to make this, they know how to make all the products that we probably might need in the future. So that was they knew had they sorted out the kind of the supply of product kind of situation, because we had been at it in the past. I know it's a hard thing to solve. The third thing that they had was it was actually an omni-channel play. Not only was MyGlamm a direct-to-consumer brand, it actually had retail outlets on the ground. At that point, I think MyGlamm had 10,000 points of sale when we were talking in August 2020. Today, we have 30,000 points of sale all over India. So it's actually an omni-channel play. And the belief is that the user lives a 360 life, and we should be wherever the user is. She's online, she's shopping in the market, she's going to her local pharmacist or kirana store to buy a product. And we as a Good Glam Group, our product should be everywhere. So this omni-channel play is actually extremely important, and that differentiates and gives the Good Glam Group an additional moat against its peers in the DTC world. You know, so we have this very robust network with feet on the ground. And the fourth thing that is very exciting was, and this is a true fact, MyGlamm's CRM backend is unparalleled, right? So the journey for the MyGlamm user doesn't stop at the purchase. The way that MyGlamm was able to integrate and now refine upon giving devices to our BAs who are there, who are making the physical sale and getting them back into the digital world for us, that's a very important step that we do. The communication touch points that we built out, the messaging touch points that we built out is actually a system for us that returns real money. So you're 100% right when you say that the journey doesn't stop with the purchase. The relationship has to continue on. You know, it's not like a one night stand. It has to be a long-term relationship that we have with the user. And that is what a good, robust CRM system actually gives to you. And if you're able to marry your offline connects with the user and bring them online in different ways and give us robust CRM system, and to actually take this a step further, we actually are launching in the next few weeks or so a single loyalty program that cuts across the entire Good Glam Group, be it the brands, be it the digital media companies, or be it the influencer companies. So you could read on PopX or earn points and go shop with those points and buy a mom's cook cream, right? So this entire trying to build out the whole ecosystem and building for the ecosystem as one entity is important. And that's what kind of really completes the user journey cycle in the purest way possible. And it's important that all brands actually look at completing the funnel, not just kind of, stopping it at purchase, but really saying, how can we have a better relationship with our users that makes it a long-term one?
Oh, super. That would be interesting to look forward to. Creating a single loyalty program across the network, I think. Priyanka, taking forward, you did talk about this the Shahrukh example, and this is very, very pertinent. As content to commerce becomes more entrenched within our social platforms and so on, how are you seeing social media influencers adapt? Because do you foresee an evolution in the definition and the role of influencers as we know it today? Because it clearly is becoming very, very clear that influencers are becoming the go-to network in some form. But the fact is that it's also getting overcrowded in its own form. So the subgroups which are getting formed is just becoming, uh, uh, is it an easier network now to handle than what it possibly was till yesterday? How would you look at it? Given that
See,
you obviously
honestly,
have a very strong play
yeah.
in that zone.
See, look, when Nikhil, I feel that influencers actually is a hugely. I mean, I actually take a different position from you. I think we're barely even scratching the tip of the surface in terms of influencers and influencer marketing. That the possibility of that, and you only have to look to China, right? So China has actually seen the entire life cycle of the influencer. That industry is a fully formed industry there, and their influencers started off as our influencers did, as kind of people next door. They kind of then graduated to becoming the holders of large audiences who really listen to them. Then they went on to kind of working with brands and selling out other brands' products. And then ultimately they started creating their own, and then it influencers as a brand, right? And then creating their own products and then selling those out as well and becoming like really robust businesses in themselves. You see examples like Huda, a huge influencer in the Middle East, and runs kind of this very, very successful makeup range, which is kind of known the world over. So that is the life cycle of an influencer that is possible. At India, we are barely at stage 1 and 2 right now. And the possibility of what influencers bring is actually, we see it as a group, and we are leveraging it. Just kind of one of our first announcements of 2022 was we announced the formation of the Good Creator Company, where we had consolidated all our kind of creator assets into one. So today we have 200,000 influencers in India who are signed up or onboarded onto the Good Creator Company assets. And they all are making real money. Some of the good influencers, she could be a 23-year-old girl, and this is what gets me, right? She'll be a 23-year-old girl. She'll be living in kind of, say, in Bombay or in Delhi. And the top influencers are making real story between 20 and 50 lakhs a month in certain months, right? That is the power of being an influencer today. And there's a huge aspirational value to that. You're known, she walks into a mall and she gets mobbed by people and people want to take selfies with her. She's a celebrity today, right? So you're going to see and this person who's making 20 lakhs in a month just by talking about other brands, she will create her own brand. And we as a Good Glamm Group want to be there holding her hand, telling her, look, you are the brand. We'll make your products for you. We'll sell them for you. We'll distribute them for you. You be the brand, right? It's a very automatic next step that's possible. So I think that's where the whole world is going to kind of, all of us are going to wake up, and that's the future right now. The future of marketing lies in content and creators. And as a Good Glamm Group, we really are kind of betting big that this is true.
Yeah. The Good Glamm Group is also betting very big on acquisitions, right? So, there's something always in the mind. Very rarely has anyone seen in the history of corporates, in India at least, and so true in the world, that a business is built completely on acquisition or significantly on acquisition. I really haven't seen any success stories so far, and I hope we are the exception to that rule. But how would you think of this, right? That both MyGlamm and as also Pop Show, on its own, in its individuality, was not necessary. It was a struggle to get to a strong financial matrix in its own form. But together, you made a big difference, and based on that success, you obviously gone into an acquisition mode as a group and as a co-founder. You've done possibly around 7 or 8 acquisitions, and I'm sure there are another 5 or 7 lined up as we speak. And you've also laid out, I guess, a few $100 million acquisition kitty already in play. How do you see that happening? Because I would love to understand how are you able to consume so many acquisitions in a very short period of time, and also bench the same against what is now becoming a bit of a rage in India, which is the thrashy sort of models of acquiring a lot of brands and businesses and pulling it all across and creating a platform out of it and so on. So just help me, as also I'm sure a lot of our listeners understand this better.
I think firstly
of let's say 15 different businesses into one.
I think that's the money question, literally. Look, there have been examples historically where this has worked, right? Again, China has had kind of their mega ecosystems have been huge consumers of other brands and other platforms, and they've all kind of rolled up, and we kind of know who the big boys are there or the big brands are there. It's worked in beauty and personal care as well, actually. So when you look at Estee Lauder was one brand, but now kind of it's a multi-billion-dollar kind of conglomerate where they actually have successfully acquired a whole bunch of other beauty brands and they've wrapped them into kind of their entity. So you've seen beauty and personal care conglomerates come out of, and Unilever has been kind of, everyone has been acquiring a lot of brands. It's not that brands have not been acquired. It's just that the way that we're going about it is maybe slightly different from the others. So this growing by acquisition is a fairly well played out story. And I think there is a playbook that we can kind of look to and refine upon from them. So that's kind of number one. I think what you're trying to kind of politely say is that you were kind of one brand and then you kind of, MyGlamm was a brand and then it acquired PopXo and Plixo and suddenly that seemed to work and investors got excited, you raised lots of money, then you went and bought a bunch of other brands. What are you going to do with that? And that's basically what you're kind of trying to ask about in a kind of a polite fashion. With us, what we realize is that capital is just an enabler, right? Capital is a moat, but more than that, it's only an enabler. Your wider moat comes from the philosophy or the strategy that you're running as an ecosystem. And I believe that Good Glam Group is actually, in its purest form, an ecosystem of content creators and brands coming together. Because we have the modes of content and creator around us, we are actually able to absorb all these brands and give them real value, right? So imagine what happens when a brand kind of plugs into the Good Glam ecosystem. Firstly, they get access to 150 million users that PopXO, Scoop Whoop, Miss Malini have, right? That's half the India's digital population we have access to through our content platforms. Secondly, that brand, which the brand would have to pay a lot of money to they pay us a lot of money to access them if they're not part of the Good Glam family. Second is that brand gets access to 200,000 creators who are part of the Good Creator Co, right? And again, on its own, the DTC brand would be paying a lot of money to these creators to be getting the same, subpar results that they might get if they're not running it through the Good Creator Co as a Good Glam brand, right? Third is they get access to 30,000 points of sale. Imagine, Nikhil, you have so many DTC brands that you've seen or invested in. Imagine them trying to set up on their own without a lot of investment, 30,000 points of sale across India. And the moment you enter the Good Glam ecosystem, you immediately get access to that, and we integrate you and we'll onboard you into that. In a few months' time, it's going to be up and running, right? Then they get access to technology. We literally have the best and the largest technology team in the country right now for a DTC kind of a brand. All of those things. So the ecosystem benefits of getting plugged into the Good Glam group are a lot. That is, I think, a bigger moat than pure capital. Operational efficiency that a lot of other kind of folks might be banking on, that I think is table stakes. Of course, we have to compete in terms of operational efficiency, right? And of course, we are on par on capital, right? So if putting those two things as givens, because of course you need capital and you need to be efficient. What else can you add into an incoming brand? And as a Good Glam Group, of course, I really believe that we built out this really kind of multifaceted set of offerings that really impact your bottom line as a brand. And I think that is the difference between us and other kind of models that you might be referring to when you kind of started the question. So again, to just in a short sentence, capital is an enabler. It is not the only moat. The moat needs to be well defined, and you need to add real value to brands that you acquire beyond just kind of making them efficient and putting them into a larger system.
Perfectly. Priyanka, just one more layer to this is that specifically in a business which is been so acquisition hungry to build up a differentiator. How do you really protect the culture of the acquired businesses? That's something which is always going to be a challenge because you're obviously acquiring different target consumers also, along with different founders, obviously different founders mindset, different layers of investors with those companies also, different AGs. How do you integrate all that into a platform what you have today? And you've been able to do a fab job on that so far. How do you really scale that up sequentially as you move from here?
I mean, the answer is gently, right? You have to be very, very careful. It's like you're handling it with like velvet and kid gloves and kind of, you asked me this earlier and I thought about it a bit more. And the answer actually is quite simple, Nikhil. The DNA of the Good Glam Group is when two founders came together, right? So that I think is actually very key because Darpan and I spent a lot of trying to navigate all these challenges that you just mentioned, right? It's not easy. Like I'm an entrepreneur. I'm used to running my own company, and suddenly, like I become a co-founder of something where I've been acquired by another company, and there's a partner who's there who have to really figure out a way to work with in a way that is kind of productive and frictionless. And I mean, there's a lot of ego at play as well. So all of those factors are real factors, and I won't discount them at all. But because kind of we really spent time in the beginning trying to figure it out between us, I think we became extremely empathetic to what our partners now either go through or potentially will go through. And we actually understand their journey because we ourselves have been through that journey. I have been the acquired company. I have been the acquired entrepreneur into a larger company, right? So I think that the whole idea of doing it with empathy is kind of really key. And because we've been there, I think we really do know how to do it well because it's learned, it's actually lived experience. When we, so a couple of things we actually do. One is expectation setting, right? And you do it at the outset that we are welcoming you. These are your strengths. These are our strengths. This is what we will add. This is what you will add. This is what we would expect you to perform at. This is what the kind of the resources that will go into place. This is what the kind of the short to medium to slightly long-term picture might look like for you. Second is on the investor side, of course, kind of we try and really simplify structures as much as possible. So, I mean, it's possible because we kind of do have a little bit of company muscle to do that. And then for teams, it is doing it with a lot of respect. You know, we've partnered with a company because we really like something about them. And all the good Glamm teams are conditioned now, and this actually starts from the top, from Darpan and then me, and then telling everyone else, saying that, hey guys, we acquired this company because they're doing really good at something. Let's respect that. Let's build upon that. Our idea is not to kind of acquire and then fire. The idea is to acquire and build and grow together. So I think when you kind of have all of those kind of little bit of value systems in place, and the kind of the final leg of this kind of table is we don't really want to consume all the cultures, right? The idea is to build a broad, cohesive, good Glamm group culture that is made up of many subcultures that coexist happily within kind of this broad framework. As long as we are not misaligned in the fundamental things, I think subcultures exist. All of us work, and a lot of us may work in big companies. Within a large company itself, you'll have a group of people who are very aggressive. You'll have a group of people who are very chill. You'll have a group of people who kind of work in a certain way, but subcultures anyway exist within large systems. So as long as we don't go in with the view that our culture best hai and everyone has to kind of follow our culture, and you allow for spaces to exist within, I think it's doable. It's hard. I'm simplifying a lot of it. Processes, empathy, culture, and just being kind to each other, you know? I mean, and we know the stages. We can't call them stages right now. First, a lot of enthusiasm when the people first come in. And then they realize, oh my God, things aren't going to work exactly as we might have wanted it to. That acceptance comes. And then you kind of start working together. So you see those happen, and I've seen it play by many times now in the past year. And you kind of know where each company and founder is, and you work with them at that point to kind of move them ahead in the journey.
Priyanka, that's extremely well articulated, must say that. And that's also the big changeover from what legacy businesses have been able to do so far. And that, I guess, is the refreshing change that we are looking at from Good Glamm. So is it fair to presume that, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years from here, we could see potentially a very different playbook of consumer businesses becoming relevant and maybe assuming leadership role in some form than what we've seen in the last 3 to 4 decades or 5 decades in India? Is that something which you would want to pitch yourself for, saying that Good Glamm potentially could have a shot at becoming the Unilever of the digital space in some form?
Again, not taking names and brands, putting that aside, I think, look, what we have created, and with all humbleness, I'd probably want to say that, is that we've actually created a new playbook for how brands are born and how brands scale in today's age of digital media, social media, and a very, very aware customer, right? So the old way of creating brands was, okay, we're going to do a survey, we're going to do a focus group, and then we're going to get like 8 men in a room, and I focus on the word men, and then we're going to tell the world what products it means, right? And then we'll again do a focus group, we'll get an advertising company to come in, they're going to make the marketing campaign, and then we're going to do a TV ad, फिर हम newspaper ads निकालेंगे, और फिर हम जाके discounting करेंगे, right? That's kind of the usual kind of way that all brands that all of us know and love have been formed. And over a long period of time, with a lot of investment going in, and then a few people kind of being the market leaders, and they were able to launch a bunch of brands because they had the systems in place, right? Unilever, all of these companies have huge kind of systems in place to do that at scale. But that gets this, and what they, I guess, didn't pay attention to was digital media, right? And the ability for digital media or the internet to undercut a lot of the processes and allow entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs, or kind of entrants like someone like Darpan Sangvi to come in and launch a MyGlamm, which is a makeup brand, and really kind of begin to be a decent enough serious player within this, and without having to do all of this work that kind of traditional brand would have done, and do it through the power of the internet technology, and ultimately now with the content and creators, right? So I think it's a new playbook. I think we are the first one, probably, we are definitely in India first. We're probably a global first as well. And I think it is time that we see a beauty and personal care conglomerate emerging out of India. Japan has seen its kind of beauty and personal care conglomerates take over the world at some point. China, of course, has seen them as well. Europe has seen them. America has seen them, but India has not. So we really want to be that first beauty and personal care digital conglomerate powered by content and creators who will really be a global brand. And that's the ambition with which we are now kind of come into the industry as, and we think we have a really good shot at doing this.
No, clearly, Priyanka, you really have a great shot at becoming that. So talking of entrepreneurs also, moving apart from Glamm now, uh, what is now your view of the greatest headwinds or also tailwinds that all founders should be aware of now? Given that there's a real change in context that we're operating in today, right? Earlier business life cycles were possibly 40, 50 years. Now successful business life cycles are 15 years at best. So how would you, is there something that you'd want to talk about the how the new age entrepreneur should really be looking out for? Because you've gone through the entire journey yourself, right? So uh, any learnings that you would want to reflect back on?
See, I think it's a great time to be an entrepreneur. Firstly, please be an entrepreneur, right? Number one. Number two, it's an even better time to be a DTC entrepreneur, right? If you're trying to build a brand, take it to India. And look, India is a very brand poor country. We have a huge population and not enough brands. So we can really absorb a lot of brands across a lot of sectors right now, right? And if you have passion and if you have a point of view and if you're actually able to create a brand that's a sticky brand, you're winning, right? But the best thing that has happened now is that exits are possible, right? When I first started, I'm trying to imagine whether any exits had even happened in 2011, 12. I don't think so, actually. I think whatever exits haven't happened afterwards. And exit used to be that really, literally that unicorn. Our unicorn is such a kind of, I think we were the, I forget, 35th unicorn of last year. But anyway, it's an oft used word now. But back then, oh my God, $1 billion company coming out of India was a big thing. And you know that. And an exit was that golden, all founders would look at that person, oh my God, yeah, uski exit ho gayi, it's so lucky uska ho gaya, right? So there was this different mindset with which you were an entrepreneur, and it was not easy. I did not see a path to success that was very clear. You had to make your own path to success. But now it's different, right? Now you've seen a Falguni Nair IPO as one of the most successful IPOs that we've seen. For me as a female entrepreneur, she's this huge role model for me and for all the female entrepreneurs who are going to come by. They've seen it happen. They know it's possible, right? And I think that is one of the big changes that we've seen. So if you're an entrepreneur, please be one. If you're a DTC entrepreneur, even better. All you do is build a brand and there's potential for exit possible. So I think that's amazing. The second thing is, I think it's very important to understand your skills and be very honest with yourself deep down. Because look, as entrepreneurs, we are primed to say, hum sab kuch kar denge. You give me enough money, I will go create a rocket for you, Nikhil. And I will do that actually. And I'm sure I can do that if I put my head to it. I believe it. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. But ultimately, it's about really knowing what is your strength and building around it. My strength personally would be marketing, content, kind of strategy at some level. Probably not kind of deep down operations, supply chain, distribution, and how to make products, right? So then if you're able to really understand your strengths and see where you are, then you're able to complement that with things that you feel you don't have. It only comes with honesty. And it took me a long time to actually admit, I came to you saying, main to e-commerce chala ke dikhaungi, right? And you didn't buy it. And you were probably right. I mean, maybe not, but whatever, right? But once you are aware of yourself, then I think good things really begin to start happening. Sometimes life teaches you those differences. Sometimes you are self-aware and you do it yourself, but that has to happen. But when you're there, then you make the right decisions. You want to make a lot of money? Sure, fair. You should make a lot of money, you put in the work. Will you make the money through exit or IPO? There are only two ways to make a lot of money when you're an entrepreneur. If you're going to make it through an exit, is there someone sitting out there who will actually buy you for big bucks, right? If you can see a path to that person, please make a path to that person, build for that person, if you will, right? If you can't see that person kind of sitting kind of a bit far around a possible person, then you need to kind of then think of IPO. Can you IPO? Can you not IPO? If you can IPO, please go for IPO. That's simple. It's a simple flow chart that you're at. You have the potential. Not everyone can IPO, by the way, right? So you have to be sure whether you are the person who can IPO. If you can't IPO, then you really go and find someone to partner with who can IPO and say, hey, we're going to IPO together. So as an entrepreneur, if you're very clear about what your priorities are, if you know yourself and you're willing to be flexible, I think a lot can happen. And don't give up. Like for my own thing was I just can't stop, and I'll give you the simple reason why I couldn't give up. I was living in London when I started the company. I'd picked up money from my friends. Never would I do that again, but I had friends that invested in my company. I couldn't dream of going back to London and telling them I've lost all your money. I really couldn't. So one of the reasons why I kept going was that I didn't stop with, dude, I have to go back to London and live at some point, and I have to go and socialize with my friends. And I can't tell them I've lost your money. So it just was not possible. The simple reason why I didn't give up was probably that. But yeah, as long as you don't give up, then stay at it. I think something works out at the end.
No, super. And just as you talked about Falguni, I think Priyanka, you've been a fantastic role model for a lot of people, I'm sure, and a very accomplished one also. Uh, but lastly, just as we talk not just of entrepreneurs, but also talk about women in general and the progress that they've made professionally, is there any specific advice that you would give to young, ambitious women in India? And I'm saying it in context of the way India has been traditionally. Is there something that you would want them to learn from your story? And it's a very
See,
young one.
honestly,
I think it's something which
yeah, what I would
is super.
actually, I think young accomplished women in India actually have, they know that there's a path out there, right? There are enough stories out there. What I'd like to give advice is to everyone else, right? So don't underestimate someone because of what she looks like or what you think she is, because I think that is number one. Number two is women are half of our buying audience, right? They're half your market, built for women. I think one of the classic mistakes that all brands do is they don't build for women. Think about e-commerce. E-commerce is a bunch of male engineers and male product managers building a user journey that is predicated on how men shop, right? I promise you, women don't shop like that. Amazon is literally a male product manager's dream come true. Women don't shop like that. Women don't think like that. There's a huge opportunity to disrupt and create something that actually how women shop, and which of course we'd like to at some point replicate, do at the Good Glamm Group. So build for women, and the only way you can actually build for women is by hiring smart women. If you don't have a couple of women at least in a meeting, you are actually not getting a full view of the problem or the solution. And you really shouldn't be entering meeting rooms like that, right? And all of us, I mean, that's something all of us should try and really kind of practice as leaders and as brands and all of that. If you're a brand entering a, I don't know, media meeting or an advertiser meeting, it's a bunch of men telling you what your brand should be. You don't have the whole picture because they don't have the whole picture. So I think my advice would go out to everyone except the smart and accomplished women is that just don't underestimate them, and look at women as a demographic, look at them as a market and build for them. And don't just paint something pink and say it's for women, because that's the laziest way of building a product. Build a product for women itself and let women do it.
Super. Super, Priyanka. Priyanka, I'll just take one question from the audience. There are a few of them, but just take one given the time paucity that we have now. Your thoughts on the larger legacy companies also getting their act right? Uh, and that is something which I'm sure all of us keep thinking of, looking at, while we also invest in disruptors and early stage companies who are challenging incumbents. But do you think consumer legacy companies in India specifically are turning a lot more, have seen how they're getting defeated at this game so far, but early days of that journey, and they'll surely get the act together at some stage. So do you see that happening, or you think there's a long way to go, and consumers have decided that their brand loyalty is going to become very fickle, and brand awareness is very high, as you rightly talked about, and thereby experimentation will increase quite disproportionate? Where is the chain going to end?
See, honestly, I think, look, all of the legacy companies are legacy companies for a reason, right? They managed to stand a lot of macro changes to their environment, and they've survived for decades, some of them. So you really cannot discount the power of the legacy company. I think, as I told you, I was doing that MBA. So there's one thing that every MBA taught is this Porter's framework of the kind of where would challenge come from, right? So I think they really underestimated the power of the new entrant, and they didn't see this challenge coming, and they didn't understand or grapple with what digital media can do for them. I think that's probably one of the misses. They were not able to, they thought of it as a marketing channel, right? And when you reduce something to a marketing channel, you actually don't see the possibility of this whole industry as a whole. I think that's where probably kind of a little bit of sleeping at the till happened for them. But I think they're catching up, and they're kind of seeing all these playbooks kind of do. I did another session, I think it was where we had HUL and P&G in the room, and I literally kind of gave exactly the same kind of, we had the same conversation as we're having right now. So they are listening. So I think it'll take time for them to and they're very process driven and they're very process oriented, and that's their strength. And I think to break that a little bit is hard for them. So I think that's where our opportunity is actually going to be, because we work really fast, we move really fast, we break things if we have to, we really kind of execute at a pace that is much harder for a legacy company to be at. So I think that's where we have a little bit more kind of scope to go. If they get their act together, of course they can get there. Anyone can, right? It's not hard. But the main thing is here we are entrepreneurs doing it, right? I think that is an unmatched resource that legacy companies will find a bit harder to compete with, because when you have entrepreneurs doing something versus really smart professionals in terms of speed and execute, in terms of speed, at least, I think we do have a bit of an upper hand, because I mean, as entrepreneurs. So I mean, there are pros and cons. I wouldn't I wouldn't say that the book is written yet. I think changes will happen. We really feel our job is to execute as the Good Glamm Group, execute to our own playbook, and really keep our heads down and deliver on the numbers that we've promised our investors and the market, and really look towards that IPO that we are kind of eyeing at probably in the next couple of years.
This is super, Priyanka. I completely agree that I think legacy, which has its own success, success also has a big baggage, and that's not easy to shrug off. And if you have to trade between entrepreneurship and good professionals, I think entrepreneurship will possibly take it hands down. So many congrats, Priyanka, and I think it's fantastic what you've been able to share your journey, and I've really learned a lot again in this, and thanks so much for your time. And in case do we need to take any further question, or we can Priyanka, you can have the last words post this.
No, I think I really enjoy this, and it's always good to talk to people who really understand the context from which you're coming, and you really do, Nikhil. So thank you for that. You've backed up entrepreneurs. You've seen this kind of journey play out so many times. So I think that is very special. Just thank you so much, and you can of course reach me on social media. And if any questions, please do. Lovely talking to you all.
Likewise.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Nikhil and Priyanka for a very engaging session. Uh, safe and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.